ora whānau. So Frida and I have an existing terrace up here on our place, and we just want to come in and interplant this here chestnut that we've recently been gifted by Papa Klaus. And so we're just digging this hole here, and so if you, Frida's is just going to bring that in. It gives you an idea as to how big a hole we actually need to dig. Here we have some ash, some charcoal, and at the lower stage we have a bit of scoria, and so we're just going to add a little bit of this to the bottom of the hole and mix it up with the existing soil that we have, and then we'll sprinkle a little bit on tops of these existing outside piles that we've just dug out, and that'll naturally mix into the hole as we cover it up. Along my journey, I've been told from both Frida and Klaus the importance of just concaving, or just as we dig, you can see the spades created this hard pan, a film if you like, from the back of the shovel as we've dug the hole out. So it's really important to make sure that we throw these little grooves, if you like, into the side of the hole, and that just helps water, nutrients, bacteria and whatnot move through the soil and keep the area hydrated, and also prevents the hole from being waterlogged. And then Frieds will be kind enough to explain grafts and the position in which the grafts sit, catering for the sun and things like this. So yeah.
Now we're going to be planting these bare-rooted chestnut trees that we got. So we ordered these from Edible Gardens, a really good reliable plant source for anyone that's wanting some nice planting material, bare-rooted trees, fruit trees, nut trees. So they come like this, wrapped up in wet straw to keep them moist, and you want to plant them as soon as you can when they arrive. And they're all grafted, so it means that she's selected a rootstock which has grown for a couple of years, and then she's cut that off and then spliced it and grafted onto a chestnut that has the desirable fruit on it. And so because of the graft, the planting's you want to be quite particular with the planting to ensure the longevity and health of the tree. So if you're on a slope, naturally trees will sort of gravitate downwards as the soil sort of sinks. Naturally all soil sort of moves slowly downhill. So you want to counteract that movement going downhill by planting your trees on an angle against the slope. So as the tree matures, it actually becomes straight. If you plant it straight on a steep slope, then over the years it's going to go lean forward and going to tip over. So we want to cantilever that, so by the time it's mature, it's straight in the soil. And then with the graft as well, the most delicate point is this area here. So another direction that the plant grows is towards the sun. So we're north facing here. If I was to position the graft here with the north face that way, this tree is going to naturally gravitate more towards the sun, meaning there's more stress as this sort of splits apart, as more of the weight is towards the sun. So again, we want to amend that. So we put the graft towards the sun, so that when the tree grows towards it, it's actually leaning into the graft, ensuring that it's stable and it's not going to rip off in future. And another consideration is also wind. So you want to notice where you've got the strongest prevailing wind over the year, and again position the graft leaning into the prevailing wind. So for us, our main strongest wind comes from the south and also from the east this way. So it's sort of a little bit tricky with the sun and the wind consideration, so you're just trying to keep it happy and the slope. So for this graft here, I would say we lean it on an angle like this because the slope's going that way. We've got north facing here and our strongest wind's coming from these directions. So the wind's going to be pushing that way, so we want to make sure that it's leaning into the graft that way. And then the sun is mainly coming there, so it's still going to be growing into the graft there. So it's not fully north because we're considering the wind as well. So we're putting it a bit on an angle like that, and that should ensure that over time with the wind, its direction of growth towards the sun and its slight incline downwards towards the slope, it'll be a healthy, mature tree, and this graft won't be problematic, and it'll be very closed and tight over time. So that's how you orientate the graft. And then root wise, they can be quite twisted and whatnot naturally. So as you fill the hole up, you just want to make sure that you're filling all these gaps and sort of laying these roots apart so they're not all bunched up in a ball, and then you've got all this air gap here that'll dry out your roots. So as you're filling, you want to just slowly fill from the bottom once you've got your position. So there we go, I'm sloping downwards. You want to make sure that the top of the soil is in line with that base of that root there. They don't like to be filled with soil, so you really want to make sure that the top of the soil ends up around here. And then as you go, you can put some into, just fill that up, and then sort of as you go, you'll just lift up some of the roots so that they all get filled in nicely and separated in their different layers. It's not even attached. Now you're going to give it a little bit poke with your fingers just to make sure it's nicely packing in there, because the worst thing for it is having too much air gaps. You want to avoid compaction with planting, but you also want to avoid having air gaps because they'll just dry out these roots. So you want to have a happy medium between the two of that. And then, so as Sean explained, putting the scoria and the biochar on top of your piles means that as you're filling in, it naturally mixes in. So that sort of saves another back-breaking task. Don't have the most aerodynamic position here, but there you have it. And then you can give it a light little shake, make sure everything's filling in nicely. Don't want to get too vigorous, you don't want to rip your roots, but just a nice little shake will do. Cool. And that's basically planting a deciduous bare-rooted tree, grafted. That's basically the basics. And yeah, for clay soil, these chestnuts like free draining soil, so amending it with sand, scoria, lime chip, gravel, whatever you have to sort of break up that clay is really handy. Biochar is really good for holding moisture and nutrients in the soil, as well as creating that artificial humus, which again creates drainage. Figuring out the orientation, sun, wind, where the graft is leaning, and then you're good to go. Okay.